Hello, Borele sir. Are the students joining in? No. Sir, should we start? Okay. Hello, everyone. I am Ms. Shraddha Chavan, Faculty and Coordinator of Self-Finance Section at DTSS College of Commerce. It brings me joy and pride to introduce to you our college and begin with the national webinar, which is on women's rights in India, a journey from the past to the present. Before moving ahead with today's program, let us take a minute and thank Almighty for being with us through our worst times and also take blessings so that our session turns out to be a good, informative, and fun session. Hello. Am I audible? Once again, I welcome everyone on behalf of DTSS College of Commerce. I welcome our coordinator of WDC, that is Women Development Cell, Dr. Carolyn David, our esteemed resource person for today, and Mr. Chandrakant Borle, the IT coordinator, and our guest, Anwesha Ghosh. All students, thank you for attending this program. I would just brief out about our college. The Dheeraj Lal Talakchand Sankalchand Shah College of Commerce, that is DTSS College of Commerce, is situated in Malad East, beyond the Western Express Highway of Mumbai. It was established by the Sanskar Surgeon Education Society in 1984. The junior college is named after its founder, Sri Panachand Turakia, and degree college is named after its founder, Sri Dheeraj Lal Talakchand Sankalchand Shah. The college is popularly known as Sanskar College. It was started with a mission to provide quality education to the underprivileged children of Kurar village. Once an underdeveloped backward area, Kurar village now is a center of learning solely due to DTSS College. Since 30 years of its inception, the college has grown from being a modest building to a sprawling, impressive structure, complete with all modern equipment and amenities, which make it a truly self sufficient institute. It hosts academic programs like BCom, BCom Honors, BBI, BAF, BMS, BSc BSc Data Science, MCom, MPhil, and PhD as well. It caters to the academic needs of over 5,000 students. A dedicated management and staff have brought an immense change in the attitude and outlook of its student population. And this has been a major reason that our college is awarded with A grade by NAC in its third cycle of reaccreditation. Also, it brings pride to mention that the college has received Best College Award by the University of Mumbai during the academic year 2017 and 18. I hope our session today brings in a lot of awareness and interesting facts along with great knowledge to all. To brief about this session and to introduce our resource person, I invite coordinator of WDC, Dr. Caroline David. Thank you, everyone.
A very good morning to one and all on the virtual platform of caring, learning, and sharing. I welcome all the dignitaries on the dais, our respected principal, Sushmita Dakshini, the speaker for today, Ms. Anwesha Ghosh, and of course, Dr. Shraddha Chavan, who is now helping me with conducting the webinar. I welcome all the students also who are present on this virtual platform and on the YouTube link. Yes, I'm here now to introduce the eminent and versatile speaker, Miss Anwesha Ghosh. She is a UGC GRF recipient and a doctoral fellow in law at the Central University of Punjab. In 2020, she has qualified for the UGC NET GRF in law. She obtained a university gold medal and an endowment medal for her LL.M in corporate and business law from the National University of Study and Research in Law, Ranchi. With a 3-year LL.B degree and a university gold medal, she graduated from Haldia Law College, which is affiliated with Vidyasagar University, West Bengal State University. She previously worked as a research fellow at GNLU on a Government of Gujarat sponsored project on need and issues of children living with HIV and AIDS in the state of Gujarat and as a field investigator for data collection in the state of West Bengal in a research program of KIIT School of Law granted by the Indian Council of Social Science Research entitled Response to the Offence of Rape by the Criminal Justice System, an empirical study in the state of Odisha, Jharkhand, and West Bengal. She's also given lectures to both LL.B and LL.M students for a short period of time before returning to the field of research. In the meantime, she's also worked in litigation for a year to gain the necessary practical expertise. She has participated in many national and international conferences, and her scholarly works have been published in various reputed peer-reviewed journals. She's also the author of book An Introspection of Corporate Criminal Liability in India. So you see, the speaker for today has so many credentials, and she's an excellent speaker. I'm sure you're all going to gain a lot. And the topic is mind blowing. The topic is very interesting. She's going to cover so many aspects of even domestic violence. So please cheer up, be ready, set, get, go to listen to a very eminent speaker, Miss Anwesha Ghosh. I would now like to invite her on the dais. Thank you, Anwesha, for accepting our invite at a very short notice. It was extremely a short notice. I'm so happy that you have said yes and here you have kept your commitment. I wish you all the best for today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you to the college authorities for bringing about such an excellent topic because it is very close to my heart. Even though my PhD specialization is in the child rights area, but yes, I have worked on lot of women rights related issues. And thank you, Dr. Caroline David, ma'am, who actually thought me worthy to bring about this topic today. Since being a woman at several times, I have faced a lot of problems. I think every one of us have done so in some point or the other in our lives. I'm talking about the rights because, I think awareness of women's rights is lacking a lot. So today we will be covering that. And before I start, I will be sharing my PPT. Uh, just give me a moment.
Anvesha ma'am, you can share your PPT as I have closed my PPT.
Okay, ma'am, is it visible to you all?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So as Caroline David ma'am have already said, and the college authorities have also mentioned, it is women's rights in India, a journey from the past to the present. So basically, we will be seeing how the women's rights have evolved through the ages, and it is very interesting to note. At one point during the Vedas, which I'll be covering, women's rights were regarded as the optimal right, and later in some of the stages it got diluted. And as ma'am had already mentioned, I'll also be covering the loopholes in certain laws like domestic violence laws and other laws, where you'll be seeing how again women's maintenance rights gets diluted as well, which is again one of our prime rights when we talk about divorced women's rights, or say a married woman's rights who still live in the matrimonial home after dispute. So I won't take much longer in this, but I would also like to share one point. While I was litigating in Gujarat, I have seen a lot of educated women coming to the court, and let me tell you, the sight is not at all the thing that you would look for. Women are in tears. And I have seen school teachers holding very high posts in those schools, like I think missionary schools they were in, and they were not aware about their rights and they were somehow victimized. So I think, I don't know if I can do so much justice to today's topic, but I will, of course, try to enrich you all. So to begin with the today's talk, I would have two objectives in mind, as I have already stated: to study the role and status of women from ancient past in India to the present, of course, and to investigate through enactments and judgments whether the status of women in modern Indian society is maintained or has deteriorated somehow. So let us just look through them. So we have women in all sectors today. Be it political participation, we have very, very strong women. I am myself a very big fan of Jacinda Ardern, the New Zealand's Prime Minister, and I think somehow I relate to her a lot in about the legislations or about the statements she make about the Indian leaders. I belong from the state of West Bengal, and how can I not take the name of Mamata Banerjee? Then Indira Gandhi, Smriti Irani, our finance minister, Dr. Nirmala Sitharaman, and we have another very special woman, Hillary. So then we have women in armed forces or peacekeeping forces. It is only a very recent phenomena in 2020 that women in our Indian army have got the credential or have received equality or at par with the male counterparts as well. Before this 2020, women were, of course, women were there in the Indian army, but they were not having, at par entitlements, which I'll be talking later in the slides. But just for now, yes, in Indian Army, Indian Navy, and other branches, we have women as a very primary role. Then, of course, we have women as caregivers. Like, as I was working in one of the projects, as Dr. Caroline David mentioned, I was working with HIV children, and of course, I found male, caregivers were there. But from the particular project, I found women as caregivers do a very efficient role. They are also their jobs certain times, like nurses, they are termed as pink collar job. And doctors, we have today women giving the primary caregivers in any age group. Of course, I don't deny the fact that even male caregivers are also there today and they do an excellent job. But, the study and the different research findings show that women caregivers, of course, have a stand. Then we have women in athletes, women in agriculture, women judges today in Supreme Court. Like recently, we have three women judges elevated to Supreme Court. So we have women representation even in the Supreme Court today. Women in corporates, since I have recently published a Scopus Index paper on women participation in corporates, the hierarchy, like the directors, CEOs. Of course, we have seen there are a lot of barriers that women have to face in achieving that position. But with the coming society or with the change of the society, we are seeing women taking up roles in the sea. Of course, we have leading examples, but the percentage is very low. So, of course, we need to have a very cumbersome, process and a good law to have the women participation in the positions, the high hierarchies. So before we proceed into like the women's rights, so we must know what is the meaning of women's rights. So according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary that we all refer to, women's rights means and includes the legal, the political, and the social rights for women equal to those of their male counterpart. Now, I would like to pause here and say two things. So there are a part of the thinkers or the argumentators who state that women rights are basically to somehow limit the family size. And then there are other argumentators who propose the argument that rights are those, which take into account the equality with male and women, and then go to positions like serving the nation, serving, teaching jobs in all this arena. So the third group takes into account women's rights as both these aspects. That is one who can limit the family size, and the other wherein they can take jobs equal to the male counterparts. So here are some of the rights of women. Of course, these are not exhaustive rights. These are basically indicative rights. Of course, there are a lot more rights than this. But some of the rights of women here I would like to point out is right to equal play, right not to be arrested at night. Like after sunset to before sunrise, there is a period wherein you cannot arrest a woman. And if there is a need, then you have to have a women police constable with you. That is the law, how women's rights are being safeguarded. Right to get free legal aid, right to keep identity anonymous in case of female sexual assault victims. So in this case, in the rape cases, sexual harassment cases, their identity, like the victim's identity in this case, can be kept anonymous and has to be kept anonymous rather. And when I talk about right to get free legal aid, let me point out that many women do not know this particular provision, because the constitution guarantees the right to get free legal aid for women who are having any amount of earning capacity. So even if you earn a lot or you don't earn, it is something that you don't have to pay attention to. You are entitled to get free legal aid. And for children, it is also the same. So right to get free legal aid has been an instrument that has been designed by the Constitution for women to get justice at any phase of their uh, life. So then we have right to dignity and decency, right against workplace harassment, right against domestic violence, married women's rights to maintenance. As I had stated, I will also be discussing certain laws. Of course, there are loopholes that we'll also be concentrating on. Women's right to property, right to register virtual complaints. Now, suppose if today a woman is harassed and somehow cannot approach the police station by whatever reasons, be it geographical locational reason, be it the family that she's in cannot or does not let her to go to the police station, she can register a virtual complaint. So this is also there. Right against indecent representation, we all know this. I don't think I have to explain this any further. Right against being stalked. Now, this has been brought into picture by the 2013 Amendment Act, Criminal Amendment Act, after the Nirbhaya rape case. I hope you all are aware of how brutally uh, the women was raped by these five men. One was a minor at that point of time. So this is after that amendment. For that reason, the amendment came, and right against being stalked also was brought in the purview of a woman's right. And right to zero FIR. Now, many people won't know this concept. Let me tell you what happens in this case. Suppose a woman is traveling by train, and then what happens? She leaves the station. Suppose say that station's name is X. Okay, and while she's traveling to station Y, she gets sexually harassed or whatever be it in the train. And then she gets down at station Z. Now, ideally, she should have either lodged a complaint in station X or station Y because the incident of the crime had occurred at that place. But no, she gets down at station Z because that is the station that she is supposed to get down, and she can lodge a FIR to the nearest police station or railway police station, say, of station Z. Now, the station Z police station at many times they will send the FIR to the station that is in charge of the incident, like where the crime occurred. So this is the concept of zero FIR. And let me tell you, many women do not know, and then there is a delay in lodging FIR. So please be aware that women have the right to lodge a zero FIR. And you have to state your right. If the police is not taking your complaint, go and state that this is the right that I have and I want to lodge. And if they are not taking, again, you ask them in writing that, ma'am or sir, of course you will get mostly male police officers there, so you can take it in writing that you're not lodging my FIR or zero FIR. Then see how the things change. So that is why I said awareness is the key tool to spread women's rights. Now talking about the early Vedic or the Rig Vedic period, what we say, women, had a very dignified and respectable status. Women's freedom to participate in war, gymnastics, archery, horse riding, public activities like education, decision making capacities, and in the selection of their male partners through Sayamvara was recognized at that period. I hope you can all, of course, right now relate, what a Sayamvara is, because we have seen a lot of mythological movies and we know what it is. So that used to take place during that point of time, and her right of choosing a partner was very much recognized during the early Vedic period. So, despite the existence of a preference for sons, see, in every period, we see there are families who prefer a son, more than a daughter. But daughters were always accepted during that period and treated well in the early Vedic India, where the education of girls passed through the stages of Upnayana and Brahmacharya leading to the marital stage. And this period, two things were recognized. One was like you can of course get married and have a Sayamvara, and also a brahmacharini who who would give her full attention to studies and never get married. So that was recognized in the early Vedic period, let me tell you. And during the Rig Vedic period, all genders were offered the privilege of equal educational opportunity to study the Vedic literatures. So, be it a religious text, women also got the opportunity during this period. And as I had mentioned earlier, even in Vedic family affairs, in the early Vedic family affairs, women enjoyed both their autonomy and their role as wives were considered to be ardhangini in the truest sense. Ardhangini meaning the better half, and Sahadharmini, the equal partner, doing or having equality in everything. Marriage was never forcibly imposed on women in the Rig Vedic society. Like today's incidents, we see honor killing, like women choosing a partner in the rural India, and then we see incidents of honor killing. That was not there during that period, let me tell you. And Samvara, as I had already said, was of course there. And after puberty and the completion of their education, girls had permission to take up a married life by selecting their life partners through Sayamvara, as I had mentioned. So after completing their education, mind you, this particular thing is there. So remarrying was also socially acceptable during that period. However, divorce was not permitted in the Rig Vedic marriage system. Women of the early Vedic period enjoyed suitable economic freedom, and they engage in professions for increasing health and well-being, as well as in teaching professions such as acharyas in Rig Vedic society. Veda has emphasized, now the downside we will come to this, that Veda has emphasized women's greatly restricted right to the inheritance. So they had a restricted right of inheritance of the property, in which married daughters were never allowed to inherit father's property. However, spinsters, that brahmacharinis that I talked about, spinsters had access to patrimony in the form of one fourth of the share allocated to their brothers. So if brothers got one share, she would get one fourth. So you can see the disparity. Even if the Vedic or the early Vedic period, we saw a lot of good things about women's rights, but this is the downside. Now coming to the epic or later Vedic period. So here, womanhood was idealized as an honorable position both in and out of the family or home. Ramayana and Mahabharata depicted women as the root of dharma, pleasure, and prosperity. The Ramayana and Mahabharata offer a picture of Kshatriya women taking part in wars to defend and protect their culture. So, this is what we saw in the later Vedic or the epic period. Then it come to the Jainism and Buddhism period. Now, in Jainism and Buddhism period, we see a lot of gender equity was observed during this period, and women were found not to be just restricted to domestic jobs like taking care of the household, but also be able to pursue an educational career. Even Ashoka's daughter had taken, a lot of higher education regarding scriptures and everything during that period. During the period of Jainism and Buddhism, women occupied esteemed position in religion and were permitted to become sannyasinis. Let me clarify here. They were permitted to become monks. They were permitted to become sannyasinis. So this was the religious position during that time, and women could hold higher positions in religion. So today, when me being a Bengali, when we see women taking the role of chanting the mantras during the marriage, we should never be shocked or having internet posts telling that women are chanting mantras during marriages. Of course they were doing even in the like earlier period also, so we can see how the things goes then. So, but the downside again here is, since women were more focused in the religion arena, so their economic status deteriorated a lot during this period. And they were also prohibited from political participation. So, this was again a downside of the Jainism and Buddhism period, even if there was existence of gender equity. We come to the age of dharmashastras or manusmriti. Being law students and having studied the Hindu law, or say of course the Hindu law, or the age old customs, we know that dharmashastra manusmriti was, of course, it's a code of conduct or the rules of right conduct, but it was a black spot on the women's rights. Now you would ask me, why, ma'am? Why do we talk about black spot during Dharmashastra or Manusmriti age? Because women's right to education was fully withdrawn with Manu's codification. During the age of Dharmashastra's Manusmriti, a number of problems started to creep in with the introduction of various restrictions on women's ability to obtain education. They were not allowed to obtain education. Even if they were allowed, then a woman had to come to their home and teach the other women. And in that time, since women's right to education was somehow curtailed, getting a good governess at that point of time was also difficult. And pre-puberty marriage, that is child marriage, occupied a great significance during this time. And husbands were given the status of God. Whatever they did, it was okay. So this is the problem that we saw in the Dharmashastra Manusmriti age. And let me tell you, this is the reason why it is called, or the black spot during the women's rights movement. Now we come to the medieval India. Now, in this time, the Mughal Empire or the Mughal arena we got to see. So, it is the history of Muslim rulers during this period. And Prophet Muhammad had profound respect for women. We see Muslim women's rights developing at this period or this span of time. Muslims, the follower of Islam, appeared in India as a warrior class during this period. And Razia Sultana, if you can recall that name, occupied the throne of Delhi and was not only a wise ruler but also a woman of dauntless courage. She set a role model for politically empowered women in India later. The role that Muslim women had played in the medieval period of Indian history since then had been very significant. But let me tell you the downside also. During the Mughal rule, the social life of Hindu women underwent grave changes. Parda or veil system became strict so much so that Hindu women under Muslim rule preferred death by sati. Women during the medieval age led very secluded life. If you ever visit Delhi, and I'm sure some of you have visited, if you see the different forts, even in Rajasthan, Delhi, you will see a secluded chambers women had. And if the Raj Darbar, if the Raja is sitting or the Emperor is sitting, they could have access through barrier or curtains or jali, and they could see the Raj Darbar. They were not entitled to come, in front and sit and, serve justice to the nation, except some, like Jahanara Khatun, or say, I would say, Mumtaz. They were some of course, Razia Sultana was, of course, an exception in other. And only an elite group, as I said, of royal women had access to education and political life. Another prominent group of women who appeared during this period of time were the Devdasis, who were educated and trained in arts and literature. But somehow They were only trained to somehow entertain the royal guests and nobles. They did not have any life of their own. They were basically slaves of the emperor. So let me tell you how situations change. You see a early Vedic period, then you see the epic or the later Vedic period, then you see the medieval period. In between that, you see Jainism and Buddhism. You see Manusmriti and this age. So you can see how women's rights during the ages got diluted, and in some of them, of course, there were good things as well. We come to the British period now. So it was mid 18th century. The Britishers entered India. For about the first 100 years, the British East India Company ruled over India, and it then came under direct control of the Queen of Britain for the next 100 years. In this period, practices like sati, child marriage, and several other social evils were banned and eliminated from Indian society. So you see how culture was there, and then you see British period. Widow remarriage was legalized too, and even for the education of women, there were a lot of policies that were brought into account. You must have heard about the name of Annie Besant in this period. And at that time, during this period, and female infanticide was at a rise. Of course, I hope you all are aware of about female infanticide, killing of girl children in Gujarat, Rajasthan, Sindh, Punjab, Madhya Pradesh, and the Britishers, by introducing the 1779 Bengal Regulation, tried to somehow curb these practices. But it was only the Indian revolutionaries like Raja Ram Mohan Roy, the Arya Samaj, Ishwar Vidyasagar, B.R. Ambedkar, Swami Vivekanand, Sister Nivedita, they helped uplift the position of women. Several legislations have contributed to the upliftment of the status of Hindu women during this time for the marriage, inheritance, adoption purpose. Some of these are the Hindu Law of Inheritance, the Hindu Women's Right to Property Act, the Hindu Marriage Act. Also, at the same point of time, we see the rise of Indian National Congress, founded by A.O. Hume in the year 1885, which had also taken steps to uplift the women's status in India. And on the same line, in 1931, Jawaharlal Nehru accepted political and legal rights of women and introduced the concept of equal obligations along with equal rights in the fundamental rights resolutions passed by the Congress that year, which again later we see in the Constitution of India as well. Indian national movement gave ample opportunity for women for participation in social and political activities. Even you are, of course, aware of Rani Lakshmibai of Jhansi, and then you know of Durga Devi. There were all lots and lots of leaders who came, Sarojini Naidu, and tons and tons of women came during this period. The period from 1857 to 1947 was an era of enlightenment and empowerment as far as women are concerned. So we can say that, of course, the practices, the evil practices right now were stopped during this period. Now we come to the independent India, that is today's India. Indian women are free to choose any form of education, let me tell you, and professional training and to enable them for a career. To be very frank, the statement when I speak, it's more or less about the urban Indian woman and some portions of rural Indian women. But the fact is, even today, many women staying in rural India are still oblivious to this aspect. That is why we have government programs like Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. So, the government is also trying simultaneously to uplift a society. But even when I make this statement, when I wrote this research paper on women directors, as I said, which got accepted in the Scopus Index Journal, let me tell you, women in corporate arena also do not have equal footings as their male counterpart. There are a lot of invisible barrier that we call a glass ceiling. What is glass ceiling? So you are here and you see an invisible barrier upon you. So that is the glass ceiling we talk about. Invisible barriers can be in the name of family. So many a times the other male counterparts do not, give promotion to women CEO directors, to hold higher positions just because they have a family to attend, or suppose say just because gender biasness is there, so organizational biasness is there. So this is the major problems as I make this statement today. Also, when we speak about women, they can of course aspire to be to the highest office of the state on the basis of equal opportunity for all appointments provided by the Indian constitution. So of course we see women representation in Indian administrative service today, women in representation in local self government, and also women representation in the highest hierarchy today, even in the Indian army, only by the recent judgment of Supreme Court in 2020. Adult franchisee for both the genders have been ensured under the Indian Constitution. So we see that the right to vote, or have an opinion about the politics of the nation, we know have been somehow safeguarded. So we can see, when we see this slide right now in front of you, we can see how the rights of women have traveled through all the stages and what she has underwent. So, coming to the constitutional privileges, there are, of course, a lot of constitutional privileges that are there for women, not only women, all the vulnerable sections of the society, but some for the women, like equality before law. Of course, it's guaranteed under Article 14, and that covers women too. The state should not discriminate against or discriminate any citizen on grounds only of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth, or any of them. The constitution gives direction to the state to make special provisions in favor of women and children. Equality of opportunity for all citizens is guaranteed in matters relating to employment or appointment to any office under the state. The state, under like the constitution directs the state to direct its policies towards securing for men and women equally the right to an adequate means of livelihood and equal pay for equal work for both men and women, to promote justice on a basis of equal opportunity, and to provide free legal aid, as I had talked before only, of any economic stature of women, they can obtain a free legal aid. Now you would ask me, ma'am, how to obtain? This is a constitutional guarantee. Now what will I do? You can approach the District Legal Services Authority. You can seek for free legal aid. You will only have to pay the court fees, which are very minimal. The advocate and other fees you don't have to pay for that. That will be paid by the state's fund. So this is about right to free legal aid. And then opportunities for securing justice are not denied to any citizen by reason of economic or other disabilities. That is about free legal aid again. The state is directed to make provisions for securing just and human conditions of work and for maternity relief. So again, women, have reproductive rights also. Women have the rights to, take whensoever she wants a child. So again, maternity relief in this sense is also one of the primary right that she has, and that has been guaranteed by the Constitution also. The Constitution again directs the state to promote with special care the educational and economic interest of the weaker section. The Constitution also directs the state to raise the level of nutrition for children, for women. Why? Because when I was researching for this HIV/AIDS project by Gujarat National Law University, we saw that the level of nutrition for women who are giving birth to children are very low. And even though state have directions by the constitution, the state do not work in that aspect much. Yes, but of course there are policies. Of course there are changes, as as the years progress. There are changes, but I would again say that COVID has taken a backseat about women's rights. We see domestic violence issues now and then in the newspaper, and how this COVID-19 has brought a sea change again to and women's rights. The movement again, got back say 10 years back right now. For of course, self-made women or women in the urban scenario do not face much, but I would also not rule out the possibility, because of course we do not know who is suffering and how she is suffering. So again, When we talk about one-third representation of women in the seats of panchayats, including the SC/STs, that has also been guaranteed by the Indian Constitution. And again, in municipalities, also one-third seats are guaranteed. So she can now represent herself in the local self-government as well. And that is a measure, why I would say, for uh, women's taking care of other women in this stature. That is the reason why it has been introduced majorly. Then we have other legal provisions, like apart from the constitutional provisions that we saw, we have other legal provisions, safeguarding the rights of victims. Even though we know women can be victims of murder, robbery, cheating, etc., but the crimes which are directed specifically against women are characterized as crime against women. And under two categories it comes: one under recognized under the Indian Penal Code, wherein you see punishments for offenses like rape, sexual harassment, molestation, and various others like stalking, voyeurism, others, if I may say. And then we have crimes identified under the special laws, suppose say Domestic Violence Act, suppose say Hindu Marriage Act, and other acts also, the Immoral Trafficking Prevention Act. So we see how crimes have been identified there also to safeguard the women's rights as a whole. There are also special initiatives for women, one being the NCW, or the National Commission for Women. If a woman is being victimized, she can, approach the NCW, or there are state commission for women also. She can by a letter approach this women commissions, and she will be helped therein, through all the stages of the to seek justice. Now, it was only in January 1992 that the government set up this statutory body with a specific mandate to study and monitor all matters relating to constitutional and legal safeguards provided for women. Time to time, amendments were suggested, reviews of the existing legislation was done so that women's rights are somehow not diluted. Then we have seen reservation for women in local self-government by the 73rd Amendment in 1992. It was brought about. We just talked about it in the earlier slide, like women having one-third representation now in the municipalities, in the urban areas, and in the rural areas, we see panchayat representation of one-third. And then the National Plan of Action for the Girl Child, which was introduced in 1991 to 2000, that the plan of action is to ensure survival, protection, and development. Three things: survival, protection, and development of the girl child, with the ultimate objective to build up a better future for this girl child. And then we have National Policy for the Empowerment of Women in 2001, where the Department of Women and Child Development in the Ministry of Human Resource Development has prepared a national policy for the empowerment of women, wherein the goal of this policy is to bring about the advancement, development, and empowerment of women again. So we come to CEDAW, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. As the name suggests, this is an international instrument. India is, of course, a party to it. So let's see what is in, because otherwise we will not be understanding how the Indian Constitution and the other laws which came after the period when India ratified this convention later, how the rights have been changed. So this CEDAW was adopted in 1979 by the UN General Assembly and is often described as the International Bill of Rights for Women. It consists of a preamble and 30 articles. Now, what is it defines? It defines what constitutes discrimination against women and sets up an agenda for a national action to end such discrimination. By accepting the convention, states commit themselves to undertake a series of measures to end discrimination against women in all forms, including to incorporate the principle of equality of men and women in the legal system, abolish all discriminatory laws, and adopt appropriate ones prohibiting discrimination against women. That's why we see these amendments coming up, because, of course, India is a party to the convention we talk about. To establish tribunals and other public institutions to ensure effective protection of women against discrimination. And then we can see here, if I go into the earlier slide, we have National Commission for Women here. This was introduced during this period. So that is the very reason why we have, the public institutions and the introduction of NCW, and to ensure elimination of all acts of discrimination against women by persons, organization, and enterprises. So there should be no discrimination of women in whatsoever reason. So we can see how CEDAW and India being a party to this convention has again led to a sea change of the women's rights safeguarding. Now we come to the maintenance rights of a divorced woman. As I had already discussed, this is a right that a divorced woman or a woman who is still staying in her matrimonial house, irrespective of the dispute, should have. So, as per the maintenance laws and rights, it is a duty of the husband to pay his wife a lump sum or monthly payment. Now, lump sum, various times I've seen people confusing between both the times. One is alimony and one is maintenance. So, this lump sum amount is the alimony and monthly payment is the maintenance that we call. Again, during the proceedings of the divorce, she is also entitled to a maintenance, which is the interim maintenance or maintenance pending delight. So this is also there. These are the technical terms. Now, the amount of maintenance is either decided by a mutual settlement, that is the mutual divorce during this period, between the husband and the wife, or in accordance with the order received from the court. So it is the woman's right after divorce in India or during the subsistence of marital dispute. Often we see the misuse of the law, both from the women's side. I won't generalize saying that women are always the victims. I have seen scenarios being a lawyer from both the sides. So I have also seen women misusing the laws. I've also seen male members misusing the laws. Now I would just state how male members can misuse these laws and how a woman's rights gets diluted, maintenance right. So I will first describe when a woman is not entitled to maintenance. Now, when she is in an adulterous relationship during the subsistence of the marriage, adulterous relationship meaning thereby an extramarital affair or staying with somebody else even during the subsistence of a marriage. Refusal to reside. In scenarios where wife has refused to reside without proper reasons, she is not entitled to maintenance. And if she is living separately, like she's holding a separate residence by mutual consent, then of course she is entitled to alimony if that is mutually agreed thing. And if she doesn't, if she is not willing to take the alimony, that is a different thing, because many women today are of the view that they can sustain themselves, they don't take into the account of alimony. But of course, it is a right that she has, and um, I think woman has the right of alimony because it is, again, she has to take into account her own life, and then if she has children, the maintenance of her children is also there. So that is how alimony secures her right of maintenance. But often we see this adulterers or the say refusal to reside grounds are being misused by the male, saying, giving reasons or establishing reasons that the women has a very bad temper, or say the women has the cruelty, she has imposed cruelty. See, a man and woman in a married relation stays behind the doors, and we usually do not get to know what is happening. So often, as we see the women misusing the law, we also can see the men misusing the law by establishing the ground of cruelty, or by establishing that the woman refused to stay with her for whatsoever reason, and that somehow he dilutes the law by giving false evidence, and a lot of things happen. So this is how, under domestic violence act only, we see this certain things. So these are the problems that are subsisting, and this is how the women's rights gets diluted. So I will come to the Supreme Court's intervention. I'm going towards the end of this presentation anyway. So Supreme Court is the guardian of our rights, of course. Without a Supreme Court's intervention into any issues, our rights, of course, will get diluted. And when we talk about women's rights, starting from Sabrimala to any judgment, you'll say, women say triple talaq, Shaira Bano case. We see Supreme Court has always tried to uplift the condition of women. So, if we see the 2020 judgment that I was talking about on the Ministry of Defense versus Babita Punia and others, participation in defense, the court made women eligible for permanent commission. Mind you, before this there was no permanent commission for women, and for the say for the promotion or say pension, they were not getting equal amount as to their male counterpart. But after this judgment, they can hold commanding roles of the defense forces in intelligence forces, and this made them equal to their male colleagues in terms of promotion, pension, and many more areas. Then we come to the Shruchita Srivastav, and another was the Chandigarh administration case of 2009, wherein again Supreme Court talked about the reproductory rights of a woman, wherein it was the woman who was to decide whether to terminate or not to terminate the birth of her unborn child. So again, the pregnancy cannot be terminated without the consent of the victim. The reproductive choice of the victim needs to be respected, and she should be given the choice to go ahead with the with and bear the child. So this was what was held by the Supreme Court. Again, in Shaira Banu versus Union of India, we have seen Supreme Court taking care of the Muslim women's rights in you see the Sabrimala temple case, they have taken care of the Hindu women's rights. In this Shaira Banu case, the court declared that the practice of instant triple talaq, that is the talaq-i-biddat, is against the basic tenets of Quran. Even Quran does not recognize saying 3 times talaq and the divorce happens, because let me tell you, the rights of Muslim women here, and if you read the Quran throughout, as I had mentioned earlier, even Prophet Muhammad gave high regard to women, and her rights were always respected. But as we see, again, this case is under review because there are many associations, Muslim associations, who do not agree to this point. But this is how Supreme Court, even this was a religious matter and a very sensitive issue. Supreme Court intervened and somehow tried to protect the rights of Muslim women. In the Sabrimala case, we see the rights of Hindu women in the same regard. In Basudev Karmakar versus State of West Bengal case, the Supreme Court stood for the rights of sex workers, women sex workers, holding they also have a right to live with dignity under Article 21 of the Constitution. It directed the central and the state governments through social and welfare boards should prepare schemes for rehabilitation all over the country for physically and sexually abused women. So now we see how even the Supreme Court's intervention has helped to safeguard the women's rights in this regard. Before ending this entire presentation, without talking about Malala Yousafzai, if you have read her book also, you would know that without talking about her, I don't think we can talk about women's rights in any way. So she said, I don't want to be remembered as a girl who was shot. I want to be remembered as a girl who stood up. So now it is for my audience to decide whether women's rights in this era has been diluted or deteriorated, or it has been uplifted. Of course, there are awareness is required. Of course, we need to work more. But yes, somehow we see a positive side of it. Thank you.
Hello, am I audible? Hello. Yes.
Yes,
Thank you so much, Anwesha ma'am. I would now request the coordinator of Women Development Cell, Dr. Carolyn David, to propose the vote of thanks. But before that, I would like to request all the students. I would like to request all the students to please fill the feedback form that will be given in the comment section by Borle sir, and make it a point that you fill it within half an hour and write your correct spellings and email ID, because it will get delivered on the email ID that you will be providing. Thank you so much, Anwesha ma'am. Over to you, Dr. Carolyn David.
With thanksgiving in my heart to God our Creator, to the principal of our college, respected Dr. Shushmita Dakshini, for giving us the permission to organizing this webinar, to our resource person of today, Dr. Anwesha Ghosh, for accepting our invite, to my amazing and cooperative colleague, Dr. Shraddha and Professor Jayesh Sakpal, and their team, and of course, our sweet audience on this virtual platform too. Dr. Caroline David, in charge of WDC of DTSS College of Commerce, Mumbai, wishes one and all a very good afternoon once again on this virtual platform. Expressing gratitude is a powerful prayer to God. It's my privilege to propose a vote of thanks and acknowledge our gratitude to the to our beautiful and distinguished speaker of today's webinar, Dr. Anwesha Ghosh of Central University of Punjab. Ma'am, your speech was informative, educative, stimulating, and enlightening. I'm sure you have enlightened all of us and we have learned a lot. Hopefully, we spread the information through word of mouth and work at bringing justice to many suffering women in India and all over the world. Once again, thank you, ma'am, for your great presentation. I also express my gratitude to all the audience present and one and all if I missed out anyone. Without you, the webinar would have not been successful. Before we end the webinar, let us all be in silence to pray for the soul of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, whose 60th birth, 66th death anniversary is today. He has done a lot for us. He cannot be forgotten. I owe my respect to him, and we all owe our respect to him. Thank you. I lastly thank one and all once again. God bless you all and have a very nice day.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
You're most welcome. It was a wonderful presentation. I'm sure all
Thank
of
you,
them have
ma'am.
enjoyed listening to it.
Thank you,
Thank
ma'am. I
you.
hope I have done justice today.
Yes, yes, you have. Thank you. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Students, kindly fill in the feedback link. Borle sir, is it pasted? Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Can I take the leave, sir? Okay, thank you so much, sir.
Dr. Chandrakant, please don't close the link because it will take time for the students to fill the feedback form. I request all the audience to fill the feedback form because you'll get your certificate instantly. Thank you, Nisha, once again. Have a very nice day and I wish you all the best for your future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was only you through, and I have got this opportunity to speak about the rights of women. Otherwise, I don't know where I would be today because it is all about our empowerment. End of the day.
Right, right. And it's a must. We all need to, have knowledge in this field. Exactly when you spoke about domestic violence and you said only the adulterous woman cannot fight for maintenance. That is, something which I know today. It's really very nice. We have learned a lot from you. And I think we'll invite you
Thank you.
once again in future to speak on domestic violence in depth. Okay, thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much, ma'am. Thank you.